I feel that art is everywhere, so it's not necessarily just on a canvas. It's everything. It's cooking, dancing, parenting, loving. It's life. Life in itself is art. One thing that I say all the time is that art is everywhere. For me, I was drawn to art at a very young age, and it means something to me personally. My dad was a wonderful artist, and he created very fine, detailed drawings, paintings. He didn't work professionally as an artist, but I have some cherished pieces of work that he created. And he taught me a lot. Very first palette, which was a wooden palette, and then he created my PVC palette that I still have today, which I use. Sometimes I feel that he's with me, here with me when I'm painting. And my children are starting to take an interest in art, which really brings me a lot of joy. I remember when I was very young, my mom sent me to all sorts of classes just to give me exposure, and one of them was an art class. It was in Providence, Rhode Island on Federal Hill at an artist's apartment. And we went and we drank tea. I think maybe the older people in the group were drinking wine, maybe. I don't know. I was drinking tea. I was very young at the time. And we painted decaying fruit, typically, sometimes flowers or whatever she had available. And I loved it. It was so wonderful. I just really enjoyed the whole process as a child. And I continued with my art, and I got involved in the business side and the creative side of marketing and art and the digital art. I did it professionally as a full-time job, as a side hustle. I still do it today, and I love it. But I've also done other forms of artwork as an actor, a professional actor. I teach fitness, another passion of mine, yoga and Pilates, meditation, and that is also, for me, a form of creativity. Art in general, I feel, is a very therapeutic, spiritual, and personal, a very personal experience. Someone asked me one time why I spend so much time at museums. I used to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, hike it over to the Upper East Side, and all the time, whenever I had a moment. And I just loved going there. And I remember blurting out because it brings me closer to God. There's so many artists that I love. I love to go to different museums, the Getty, I just have so many fond memories of traveling all over the world and visiting museums. I'm drawn to Rodin's, Michelangelo. When I travel to places like Italy and France, it's just so overwhelming. The architecture, the beauty, I love to take it all in. That's really my happy place. I like to go into nature and be inspired. I love photography because it's a medium that you capture. It's not necessarily the way something is, but it's how you capture it. I'm at the point in my life where I don't necessarily have the same apprehension that I did when I was younger. What's most important to me that I had learned as an artist is that you should learn the rules and then go ahead and break the rules. So learn techniques, learn information, learn how to use pencils and pens and gouache and acrylics and oils, and learn all of those, experiment with those, maybe even dive into other aspects of creativity like digital arts and acting and writing and how those all complement each other. The art that I create because it brings me joy and that it's beautiful. I remember very vividly being in a class, the professor saying not to create anything that is cute, like kittens or flowers. And that always just didn't sit right with me. I understood the concept behind it. I also understand that we can find beauty in something that isn't specifically socially known as beautiful. Working as a creative in the business world and also as an actor and a writer, I understand that those rules are there to make you think outside the box. But now I'm at the point in my life where I am painting, and I'm painting what brings me joy. I'm painting what I want to paint. The painting is a very spiritual practice. It's very therapeutic. It feels good to paint. Yeah, and sometimes there's challenges. I also like to look at the awkwardness in a painting, or something that I created that I saw that doesn't necessarily fit in the painting, and how it belongs there anyway, even though there might be an awkwardness about it, or maybe it doesn't fill the composition as I expected. I love texture, I love light, and I love how the light interacts with flowers and nature, and how it illuminates. And when you look at a tree, yes, you see green, but there's all different shades of green and textures and edges. And I also like playing with different tools to create what I'm looking for. So different paintbrushes, and a palette knife, or maybe something that's completely outside the norm. And ultimately, an artist is sharing with you their interpretation of the world, whether it's flowers, or whether it's a movie and it's a script or a book, or it's their interpretation of something, and you explore it and you see it. And if you enjoy it, that's wonderful. If you don't enjoy it, if it makes you think, that's wonderful as well. And I like the idea of coming to complete life cycle with something from start to finish, from the first stages of sketching something to finalizing something, which sometimes I could keep painting and painting and painting. But it's a good exercise for me personally to find a conclusion, even when I think something isn't good enough. To find a conclusion, to find some type of letting it live now, like we do very often with children. It's time to let go. A child or a loved one, it's time to let go. It's time to move on. The process of life, when you're working on a painting, at some point you have to let go and let it go on its way. I like to see how an idea happens. I like the collaboration process. When I see a blossom and I see a thread of red in a white petal, that to me is so extraordinary. And I enjoy that creation process. It's a form of spirituality. It's a form of love. It's the creation process, the spiritual process. It's something that really brings us in that state of flow that is so extraordinary. That's why we're, if we can get those little pockets of it. Painting, meditation, yoga, these things, running, there's so many. Of course, being with my family, there's these pockets of that. It's like a spiritual epiphany. And I get that when I paint, and when something comes together, I use a color that I see, and I'm trying to pick it up in the painting or feel where it goes. And then all of a sudden you have this rush, you have this feeling. And other times something doesn't work. And I think that is part of the process as well, that I don't feel like this part worked, but with all of it together, it works as a group cohesively. Painting nature, painting what we see, and then your interpretation of it, it's the alchemy of life.